today's pests and diseases. Thank you all. So I will move on. As a way of introduction, I'll start by introducing Kutsaga and the plant health team and what we do. I'll give you a slight review of the past season and end by looking at the outlook of the coming season and possible challenges and solutions, proper solutions. And then we have a discussion after that. I'm hoping that this doesn't become a lecture, but more of a discussion. So we want to hear farmers and stakeholders' experiences and if we can be of assistance to that. So that will be the nature of today's presentation. But first of all, our mission is to provide our farmers and stakeholders, including merchants, with solutions to pests and diseases. And these solutions have to be timely, they have to come in timely, they have to be cost effective, and they have to be environmentally sound. So that is the mission, and we do this by carrying out research work to make sure that we provide our farmers with this. We also do provide services such as a plant clinic, where all tobacco farmers are free to bring in their crops for diagnosis and advisory. We also provide monitoring and detection of diseases in the industry. So we provide more like a satellite, so able to inform our farmers on time of incoming pest and disease surges. So our farmers are prepared. It's part of the work that we do in line with sustainable tobacco production and in line with our mandate within the ministry and the nation. Just to give you scenarios of the pest and disease pressures we've seen in the past decade, we have noticed that the relationship between climate, pests, and diseases is a strong one. It's something we cannot run away from. And so I've tried to give you a scenario of what we have seen in the past decade. I will zero in on a few seasons. In particular, we do have El Ninos and La Ninas. El Ninos that are predominantly dry, and La Nina seasons that are predominantly wet. But we do have normal seasons in between, though not too many and not frequent, but we do have normal seasons. And what we have noted with normal seasons, I want to define. Normal seasons are defined in regards to the amount of rainfall we receive in the season. So where we receive 800 mils on average, we take that to the normal season.
But as you know, family, he was trying to get in law enforcement. He wasn't on drugs.
May you kindly mute yourselves, colleagues who are online. You kindly mute yourselves. Thank you. As you note, some of the normal seasons may be characterized by mid-season droughts, either at the start or in the middle or at the end. And so I'll talk about this as I talk about the pest and disease scenarios. So what we have seen with the El Ninos in particular is that when they are predominantly dry, we normally do have insect pests becoming a problem. We have had red spider mites, we've had lessworms and stem borers, we had false wireworm, as we saw in the past season, a lot of false wireworm. In the La Ninas, on the other hand, we do have a lot of foliar disease outbreaks, in particular, angular leaf spot and also Alternaria. And so we do have those extremes. But sometimes when we have hot and dry mid-seasons, we do have cases of, in particular, potato virus Y, and I'll touch on this later on. I'll come back to this very slide right at the end as we discuss this particular season. So allow me to move on at this point. Then start with insect pests. One of the important insect pests that we've seen in the past few seasons are false wireworms. We did see this in the past season, and I decided to bring this up because of this dry phase that we're experiencing at the start of this particular season. And from last season, we did have a lot of false wireworm with a lot of damage, large-scale farmers, small-scale farmers included, and this was a menace in the past season. What we have seen this season especially associated with the seed beds was dusty surface beetles. I need to explain right from the outset that this is the same pest. It's just that there are different stages of the life cycle for both false wireworm and true wireworm. We do have those larvae coming in, and it takes about 4 or 5 years before we get the adults. So last season we had a lot of false wireworm in terms of the larvae, but this season what we have seen in the seedbeds are a lot of the adults, the dusty surface beetles. So you might have seen this or encountered this in the crop, in the seedbed, and in the crop at the early phases. And the work that we have done in the past season and this season, just to show cause, just to test a few of the remedies that are already recommended for false wireworm, we did find that imidacloprid, if applied in the planting hole, is quite effective. So we do encourage our farmers to make sure that imidacloprid, thiamethoxam are applied in the planting hole as recommended. We are continuing with work on other molecules that potentially will be introduced for the management of soil insects. We've also advised in a Dear Grower that we sent out a month ago that farmers, in cases where they see a lot of dusty surface beetles, can use fipronil as a bait, and we did give the recommendations and the formulations that they can use. So we have issued a Dear Grower to this effect, and farmers can use fipronil as a bait for dusty surface beetles, but in field, farmers then can use imidacloprid and thiamethoxam in the planting hole. Very important that farmers do, as we found this to still hold efficacy. Mealybugs. As we have seen in the past season, particularly in areas to the east, we started to see this problem in the east, in Odzi district, in Nyamajura, in 2019, but we have recently, as recently as last season, started to see a lot of this pest in Shamva, Mount Darwin, Mashonaland central areas. And what is common about these two areas is that the farmers used to grow cotton and some have moved to tobacco. So we suspect that there's been a host jump from cotton to tobacco. As far as mealybugs are concerned, it is a growing problem, a very difficult to deal with. Populations quickly build up, and sometimes management can become a problem. As you saw in that initial image, this can follow you right through to curing, and you'll have a lot of sooty mold, you'll have a lot of yield loss, and quality issues become an issue. So do watch out for this if you're in Mashonaland Central, and if you're in Manicaland, particularly Odzi, Nyamajura areas. Work that we have done, again, we have proffered solutions and recently issued a Dear Grower to this effect on the management options that are there. Your Aceta plus abamectin, your imamectin benzoate plus acetamiprid combinations, as well as lambda acetamiprid, imida beta-cyfluthrin combinations, as well as dimethoate. All these combinations, we have found them to be efficacious against mealybugs should you have a problem. So do watch out for mealybugs, particularly in this initial dry phase. Wash out the seed beds underneath the leaves, and as you go to the field, make sure you're not transplanting seedlings with mealybugs. Otherwise, in-field application becomes management becomes a problem. So please do watch out for this particular problem. Now then move to the pathogens. And I'll start off with the weevils, black shank fusarium. I will add Pythium to this. I will explain just shortly. So we did see this to be an emerging problem in the industry, particularly when conditions get drier. When conditions get drier, we've started to see this complex black shank and fusarium coming in. Initially, black shank in the early past, a few years ago, 2019, 2020, and then we started to see the association of black shank and fusarium. in the past season. We did see wilts in some cases, 5%, in some cases growing to 20, 50% as recorded by some farmers. But we're still studying this particular issue. It is coming in as a complex between the two pathogens. Black shank is an Phytophthora nicotiana is the causal agent. Fusarium wilt caused by Fusarium species, and Phytophthora is an omycete. Both of them are soil-borne. Fusarium particularly, Phytophthora has to be associated with moisture for it to cause problems. But we have seen a serious outbreak in the past season and have done some work in this regard. There's been upsurge. We did some tests in regards to a few molecules that were already registered, the Ridomil, metalaxyl mancozeb being one, and we found the majority of the cases of the isolates, Fusarium isolates and the Phytophthora isolates, to be sensitive to Ridomil gold. So it should be an option of choice. Metalaxyl mancozeb in the planting hole should be able to arrest a lot of these particular pathogens. Just a small portion of the Phytophthora was found to be insensitive, a few isolates. But we think that this should be a solution as farmers do plant, particularly those with a problem in the past season. They should be able to use this. And as already said, Fusarium in hot, dry seasons is a problem because it persists. It can also be worsened by the presence of false wireworm and other soil-borne insects. So they exacerbate this particular problem. So insect management is of paramount importance as you manage the wilts as well. Please do note that in some cases, there are carryover cases of Pythium, Rhizoctonia, Pythium and Rhizoctonia to the field from the seedbed. You may note that this is experienced, especially when you start to have wilts in the first 3-4 weeks of planting. If you have carryover of Fusarium and carryover of Rhizoctonia, usually you do have early wilts. But with Fusarium and Phytophthora, what we have seen is that later in the season, the plant builds up and builds up biomass, and later on, as you start to get dry phases, you start to notice these wilts. So important to note that distinction in as far as seedbed management and field management. So it is important. What should farmers do? It is important that farmers do monitor a number of cultural and chemical management approaches in an IPM. Firstly, very important that we reduce the amount of inoculum in the field. So make sure you remove as much of the debris in the field, especially where you've encountered this problem. Crop rotation is important as well. If you're going to be using crops such as Sanep in your rotations, make sure you seed treatment with microbes such as Trichoderma so that you reduce the incidence and prevalence of these particular pests. But otherwise, grasses are immune and are an option of choice. And also do control insects, very important. I've already talked about the Ridomil gold. In terms of chemical management, strobilurins plus triazole combinations can be quite effective. Your likes of Sky, Castodia, Azoxyduo, azoxystrobin on its own, Trifloxy, along with many other combinations that you may try. Fumigation, again, for those who can manage, is an option in as far as management of yields is concerned. I will now touch on angular leaf spot. Angular leaf spot is a disease caused by Pseudomonas syringae, PVY tabaci. It's a bacterial pathogen, very prominent on the leaf and can cause significant damage and yield losses, particularly in cool, wet weather. While we may not have experienced cool, wet weather, we're starting to see showers coming in now. And if predictions go is already given by the Met Office, the second half of the season is expected to be wet. And do look out for this particular pathogen because it comes in quite hard, especially after dry phases. So please do look out for for angular leaf spot, as it may cause yield losses. What can you do should you experience or before experiencing angular leaf spot? As preventative measures, we do advise our farmers to apply Bion religiously. Bion has already been recommended for the management of this particular disease, both as preventative and as curative. So please do apply your Bions religiously. And we have since registered a number of other options that farmers can use. Kasugamycin, hydrogen peroxide, these can be used for the management, particularly as preventatives for the management of angular leaf spot. So do look out for this and do stock up as we go into the wet phase from January to March next year. In as far as the diseases are concerned, I'll finish off with potato virus Y, primarily transmitted by aphids, in particular, Mysosphaeria nicotiana, the tobacco aphid, although we have noted in the past few seasons that the black bean aphid and the potato aphid are becoming major players in as far as the transmission of PVY. So for those farmers who do potatoes or who have their farms close to potato farmers, please do watch out for this. As you know, regulation has it that there needs to be legislated distance between these crops. So please do look out for this particular aphids. What we have seen in the past, as far as symptom expression is concerned, is that after hot weather, like we're experiencing at the moment, you have built biomass, you have your leaf thriving. And then when we have rains coming in, as the rains come in for a week or two, and then sunny conditions come, you then start to see symptom development as far as PVY, particularly the necrotic strains. That's when they do come in. And sometimes it can be very bad, as you see in the image there, with 70–80% damage to the leaf. And this experience was in 2019. We did see an outbreak of this particular level. So do look out for that. We do not have resistance at the moment to potato virus Y, and we're working on that as Kutsaga. But in the meantime, please do look out for this particular disease. What we did not in 2017-18 season when we had our the last flare is that in the previous years from 2013 we're gradually recording cases in the plant clinic until after the mid-season drought in 2017-18 season. In January, when the rains came, we had that flare with plenty, hundreds of cases being recorded. In the plant clinic, we did record in excess of 50 cases, but we did have a lot of calls. And so just warning farmers as we experience this dry phase and as we move to the wet phase, because it may be an issue. So please do look out for potato virus Y and do apply your Bions just to give your plant good health. But why did we have this surgeons in 2017-18? Primarily is because of non-stop destruction on the farms. So those regrowths do harbor PVY. And what we have seen from studies are that 80–90% of those regrowths do have potato virus Y. So we do have a problem, and we have to attend to this problem, because all you need is 5 seconds of an aphid that has been feeding on those regrowths to feed on your crop. And even if sometimes you've applied an aphicide, the virus is transmitted in those few seconds, and then you start to have problems from aphid transmission to mechanical transmission as you top your crop, and eventually you do have yield losses. So please do look out for this, and let's advise our farmers to destroy crops. The PVY2 kit remains the same. Adherence to legislative dates, early planting to escape this disease, that's from the 1st September onwards. Vector management as far as aphids are concerned, even if you've not seen them, apply aphicides religiously. Host plant resilience, that's good health of the crop, as well as, of course, the biomes that increase the plant's immune response. We do monitor aphid populations at Kutsaga daily, and whenever feed populations are going beyond thresholds, established thresholds, we do issue an alert to the industry. So that remains the PVY toolkit. I'll finish off with nematodes. Nematodes remain an important player in as far as production of the crop is concerned. Although we do have resistance in our varieties, and in some cases, very high resistance, we have noted that in some cases, we do have this pest running away, and so important that we do not. Last season, we did have a few cases in Shamba and in Mutoko where root knot nematodes were running away, particularly on cultivars such as KLK 26R. And so we do encourage our farmers to use varieties with higher resistance. They are on the market, and in as far as chemical remedies are concerned, a number of them that are registered, and in particular your flupiram, your Vaniva, your fluensulfone, those ones are on the market for farmers to use. Whether you're able to use these in the planting hole or you're able to use fumigants. But we do advise farmers to bring in soils for testing before they apply nematicides, because you need to know the nematode numbers in the field. And those do correspond to the chemistry that you then have to use. In some cases, where you have very high nematode populations, you are then recommended to use a fumigant. And where you are using a resistant cultivar with medium to low nematode populations, then you can use the softer nematicides. So very important that farmers do bring in soils for testing and get recommendations. I'll finish off with this slide. And this slide is talking to exactly the same issues I talked about at first, but zeroing in on the 24-25 season, which has been predicted to be a La Nina. Although now we're being told that in the neutral phase, we're not too sure how strong the La Nina is going to be. We have experienced a hot and dry first half. And so the worry is on false fireworm, dusty surface beetles, and weevils and mealybugs, as I've already alluded to. So do watch out for these and do apply the measures I've talked about. But as we go to the wet second half, let's do watch out for potato virus Y and angler leaf spot, and let's apply the recommended practices as I've discussed in this particular session. I'll then, at this point, leave this to a discussion. I've touched on what to look out for, and then at this point, I'll open it up to discussion. Thank you. So if anyone has issues to discuss, if I may see by show of hands, so that we get to attend to the issues and have a discussion. Thank you.
Dr. Chinea, there's a hand up by Gerald. Gerald, you can go ahead if you are there.
So I do see a question from Gerald here. In terms of Bion, we are doing 2 sprays. Are they enough? At this point in time, we do advise farmers to apply those 2 Bion sprays, and beyond As we move to the wet phase, has already been alluded to, we're supposed to monitor our crops, and we will issue advisory in this regard. But you do also have your casugomycin, you also do have your hydrogen peroxide should push comes to shove. So keep those at bay. In the bionts as well, should push comes to shove, we will advise on whether it's necessary to apply further bion sprays. So we are monitoring the environment together with you, and will advise accordingly. Gerald, I hope I've answered you. Thank you. And thank you, Tafadzo. If you can watch out for those hands, I don't think I can see them from this end.
Noted, Doc.
Any more hands, Tafadzo?
So far it appears there are no hands.
All right.
Please, listeners, if you have questions, please, farmers, please raise your questions. Whether in the vernacular or in English, please don't hesitate to ask. This is the forum for you to ask questions regarding pest and disease concerns. So please make use of this opportunity.
I've got a question. This early with this weather, where it got cold just after September, and a bit of drizzling, then we started to see on our tobacco plants symptoms that when I googled, it looked like a weather flake. So not knowing, is there anything that farmers need to do if they see weather flake on their tobacco leaves?
Thank you so much for that question. So yes, indeed, we have seen this before, and it's documented whenever we have those sudden weather changes, those sudden change in weather from cold to dry phase. We do have weather flake in the form of white small spots on the bottom leaves, and this normally happens, but it's not expected to be a major issue, as it is not expected to cause major yield losses. It is on the lower leaves and a few leaves in particular. In some cases, as you move through the season with good plant health, you do see these disappear. These are to be separated with weather flake symptoms associated with potato virus. Why? These do come in, we think, later in the season as the rain starts to come in, and these do persist. But the ones that we have noticed, the early phases, particularly as we had the cold fronts coming in, we don't expect this to cause yield losses, and we don't expect that you apply any chemical remedies in that regard. I thank you.
Fellow farmers,
yes, go ahead. Yes, yes, we're speaking about aphids. I got a point where you said it's just good to religiously apply your aphicides, whether you are seeing aphids or not. Then I just wanted to find, what would you think would be the best way to apply it? I see in the handbook there's also a recommendation that at topping people can mix, for example, your what do you call it, your aphicide with your saccharicide, or can one spray? What would you recommend is a more effective, especially for one who has acetamiprid is the aphicide he wants to use?
Thank you so much. A very important question as well. As you may have noticed, especially if you are going into the handbook, in the early phases, if you apply your aphicide in the planting, or your imidacloprid, your thiamethoxam, and so forth, we're expecting that aphicide should linger in the plant for 6 to 8 weeks. So it should be able to give protection to the crop, except where aphid populations are exceptionally high. So you do come in with your acetamiprids, with your foliar sprays in field. Otherwise, with monitoring, expectation is that when it comes to topping, then you mix your suckercide with an aphicide. It could be dimethoate, it could be aceta as recommended. So if you mix that, that becomes taken up into the plant and further protects you as you have suckers should they come up. So that should protect the plant going forward from topping and give you ultimate control of aphids throughout the season. So yes, we do recommend that that mix, that suckercide, aphicide mix be done and applied for protection of the crop from topping onwards.
Thank you, Dr. Chinea. I have a question here. There's a grower who is saying, Fodga yangu yaita badworm nemapundu ku seedbed kunesi. Ndingashandisewo mushonga upi tave kuda kuisa mumunda?
I will touch on the Mapundu one, and I'll ask Chieza to come in on the badworm just shortly. Mapundu, I'm hoping that the Mapundu avari kutaura is not root knot nematodes. Otherwise, if the Mapundu that are being mentioned are root knot nematodes, Mapundu ari kumidzi ekuti mukaakwiza haabve anoramba aripo kana achibva manodules atoona mubhinzi aya and so forth, but kana asingabve ari mapundu emanematodes, my advice to this particular farmer, it may come in a bit hard, but my advice is that they don't use these seedlings for transplanting. They would rather look for new seedlings to use in the field that are clean. Let me explain shortly. Every bundu riri kuonekwa nafama, one bundu riri kuonekwa nafama iroro rine makonye anotangira pamatatu kusvika pamashanu, kureva kuti between 3 to 5 nematodes ini bundu rimwe chete ravari kuona. And iroro gonye makonye iyayo rimwe nerimwe gonye parinoenda kumunda richandokandira mazai 500. So you're expecting pabundu rega rega 3 times 500, 1,500 nematodes that are going to emerge kubva pabundu rega rega achidzoka kuzorumazve chirimwa ichocho in and cycle yatiri kutaura iyi zvinoitika mwedzi pamwedzi umwe chete gonye rimwe chete ratozvara vana 500, and those 500 come back to affect that plant. So bundu rega rega ravari kuona rine 1,500 nematodes that will come back to infect. So vakaverenga mapundu ari paseedling rimwe chete vakamultiply na 1,500 ndo mapundu avanotarisira kuzoona after 1 month vadyara fodya yavo, vakazosvika mwedzi 3-4 fodya iri mumunda chirimwa ichi, these crops start to succumb and havawa negoho ravari kutarisira. Chechipiri, makonye iyayo achasara mumunda mavo mwaka unotera neunotera, kureva kuti vakutouraya munda. Saka I advise kana vane mapundu mimidzi kuti vasiyane nembesana idzodzidzi and find new seedlings. That would be my advice to them. But in as far as badworm is concerned, your imida plus beta-cyfluthrin and your flubendamide are options of choice that they can use dzisingapise. So do watch out for phytotoxicity, but ndo ma-options amunogona kusenzesa futi dimethoate kumanager badworm. Ndinovimba ndavapindura. I hope I've answered the farmer.
Tinotenda chiremba, ndinovimba kuti vabatsirika zvikuru. Tinoramba ndichikumbira varimi sunungukai kubvunza mibvunzo pamukana uno bvunzai mibvunzo pane zvamuri kusangana nazvo zvine chekuita nezvirwere zvipembenene pafodya. Bvunzai mukana uchiripo.
I see, Doc, on one of your slides, you have put up, there's a point written complexity of registering bactericides, especially on the one that spoke to the angular leaf spot. Just out of interest, what are the complexities around that? Because it looks like we are limited in chemicals to use for the bactericides, while that angular leaf spot is a very, very prominent disease that we usually get when the weather is really, when we do have quite a lot of rain.
Well noted, well noted, and again, thank you for that question, a very relevant question. So the complexities of registering bactericides for angular leaf spot came about because so we have research trials pakutsaga where over seasons we've been trying to find solutions. So we have a lot of products that potentially could be used for the management of angular leaf spot, but over the years we have not had significant disease establishment pakutsaga. Saka titinatsokuwana mushonga zvanga zvichititi shupei. Fortunately, in the past 3 seasons, in past 3 to 4 seasons, we have farmers. We have opened up the doors to us. We have asked that we come to their farms to carry out trials, benefiting the farmers, the agrochemical companies and the nation. So we have carried out farmers in Marondera, in Macheke, in Rusape, where farmers have opened gates for us. And so, and where angular leaf spot is a problem. And this has started to yield results for us. It started to lessen that complexity. And we have then started to see the registration of my products, peroxide, and other. So do expect in the next season or two to see a lot of bactericides of choice coming onto the market as farmers do open up the spaces to management of these diseases. And I should encourage those farmers who do have some of these challenges to let us know. We are free to carry out trials on farm together with agrochemical companies or alone as Kutsaga to help the farmer and also get solutions for other farmers.
So coming to that, I don't know whether there's a relation to it. We have a farm where we do our seedlings on float, and we do transplant our tobacco on that. It's a different, I would say farm A has its own seedbed on float trays. And actually we transplant that on farm A. Then we have farm B, which is, I would say, 5 kilometers, less than 5, just the next door farm. We do our conventional seedbed, and we transplant our seedlings on farm B. But we've seen now that when the weather is weather is conducive for the angular leaf spot, we do get on the conventional seedbed on that farm B lots of angular leaf spot, when we would have done the same chemical spray programs on both farms. So not knowing, is there a relation between the angular leaf spot on seedlings done on float versus conventional? I don't know if there's a relation there.
I will ask Mike to come in at some point. Suffice to say, naturally, because I think your conventional seedbeds are soil-based, and angular, while it affects the leaves, it can linger in the soils. So the chances that angular is splashed from soil to the leaves is possible. It may not then present itself in the seedbed, but becomes prominent, Kumunda. So yeah, that could be one of the reasons, but I'll open this to Mike, who is a resident pathologist and specializes with angular leaf spot to assist. Mike, if you can come in.
Thank you very much for the question. Over the past years, those seedlings that are produced in the conventional system, as Dr. Chineya said, this is soil-based. Angular leaf spot is a soil-borne plant pathogen. Pseudomonas syringae is a soil-borne plant pathogen that causes the angular leaf spot. So from the conventional seed beds, you can get inoculum that you then take to the field. And if the field conditions are conducive for the disease to establish, definitely it will establish. I don't know if I've answered you.
Yes, I think you have answered me. Was that in a way? I think as we approach this season with the wet second half, I think we just need to be cautious on the conventional, taking lessons from the past seasons and have a spray program that speaks more to it. So I think yeah, that answer gives us a guide on what we need to do.
All right.
Thank you very much. Mike remains available. Mike remains available for assistance. He's a specialist in angular. If you want a tailored spray program, Mike is available for assistance in that regard. Thank you. Back to you, Tafadzwa.
Thank you very much, Doc. From the platform, it appears there are no more questions. So, okay, Jared has a hand up. Jared, you can go ahead. Jared is asking a question. What do you recommend is the best cover crop during the winter season for your tobacco crop?
Okay, I'll do the first part and I'll ask Tafadzwa to finish it off. Work that we're currently doing has shown that SANHEMP and Tafadzwa here has done tremendous work, exciting work, and as far as SANHEMP is concerned, very good cover crop that can be used in between crops, particularly soon after your crop is done in March, thereabout, March, April. And we've seen fantastic results in as far as SANHEMP is concerned for soil health, for nematodes, for soil properties, water retention, and so forth. But very important, like I said in the presentation, very important that you do watch out for soil-borne pathogens and in some cases soil-borne insects, because that biomass you build up there may become source. We've seen that especially for carryover seed, farmers do have a tendency to carry over SANHEMP seed, and sometimes it is not carefully selected. And those shriveling seeds that we see in there are carrying pathogens. They are carrying Fusarium, they are carrying Rhizoctonia. And as you saw that, you are reestablishing that pathogen in the field. So we advise farmers when they do use SANHEMP to do a seed treatment with Trichoderma. And Trichoderma is available on the market. We have done this successfully with Kutsaga's T77 Trichoderma that is available, and we've seen very good results that Tafadzwa has done and presented internationally. So very important option. We do have grass, a grass, short season grass, intermediate, whether for 6 months or for 1 year. If the Kutsaga's GHR1, it could be available. And in some cases, we are starting to do work on mustard. One of the nematologists here, Grace, again, is working on mustards as a possible cover crop. Mustard Yotsungas, specific cultivars, and he's concluding on this work this particular season. But this is work that has been done before, and I'm sure farmers who have done tobacco in 20, 30 years ago do know that these mustards were there on the market and used as cover crops. But Grace will finish her work this particular season and will give more solid recommendations in this regard. Tafadzwa, do you want to touch on this?
I think, Doc, you've covered everything. I'll also emphasize that it's important for you in terms of during the off season to also make an effort to check the soil health status of your land. Get your soil tested. Come with your soil sample to Kutsaga. Get your nematode counts done so that we'll be able to recommend the ideal cover crops that you can use during the off season. And you'll be better placed to manage your fertilizers at the onset of the next tobacco season. So maybe another response to a question asked about the presentation. Please note, listeners, that this presentation will be shared on Kutsaga's YouTube channel in the few days to come. Please stay tuned. For those who have missed this presentation, don't be disappointed. The presentation will be put on our social media platforms, especially the YouTube channel. Thank you, Doc. It appears there are no longer any questions.
There is a question there, Tafadzwa. There is a question from Gerald. I'll answer it just quickly before you close. We normally recommend that a sun hemp be plowed in at 30%, 30 to 40% flowering. So as soon as it starts flowering at 30 to 40% flowering stage, that's when it's recommended to be plowed in. That's the best and optimum time to disc in your sun hemp. That's a recommendation. Thank you. Back to you, Tafadzwa.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Chinea. Are there any more questions from the floor? If not, maybe what remains is to thank Dr. Chinea for that very insightful presentation come discussion that a lot of the listeners benefited from. There were a lot of angles from corrective measures with the use of curatives, preventatives, cultural control measures. I'm sure those who were listening benefited, and we hope that you will also contact us with the contact details that we have shared. Please feel free to inform us of any problems that you're facing in terms of pest and disease management. But for now, please stay tuned for the next exciting presentation that will be presented in our next series of Kutsaga webinars. So at this point, I'd like to thank you and wish you a blessed day for the remainder thereof. Thank you all and goodbye.